The courtroom doors exploded open. Elena walked in barefoot, clutching two sleeping toddlers against her chest. Her dress was torn at the hem. Mud stained her knees. Marcus Devane stopped laughing mid-sentence. His mistress Veronica choked on her champagne. Everyone expected a broken woman crawling in to beg for scraps. Instead, Elena walked straight to the judge's bench and placed a sealed envelope on his desk. "Open it," she said. Judge Harrison Cole broke the seal. He read the first line. His face went white. The secret inside wouldn't just end a marriage, it would destroy an empire. Comment your city below. I want to see how far this story travels. The bailiff had seen plenty of drama in Manhattan family court. Crying wives, shouting husbands, lawyers throwing papers. But nothing prepared him for what walked through those doors at 9:07 a.m. on a Tuesday morning. Elena Martinez entered the courtroom barefoot. Her feet were dirty. Her gray dress hung loose on her thin frame, torn at the bottom hem. She carried two children, twins, maybe 3 years old, one on each hip. They were asleep, their small heads resting on her shoulders. She didn't look at the gallery packed with reporters. She didn't look at the expensive lawyers shuffling papers. She walked straight down the center aisle, her bare feet silent on the cold marble floor. Marcus Devane watched her approach. He sat at the petitioner's table in a navy blue Tom Ford suit that cost more than most people's monthly rent. His Rolex caught the fluorescent light. His posture screamed confidence. He leaned over to his lawyer, Arthur Blackwell. "She couldn't even afford shoes," Marcus whispered. "This is going to be easier than I thought." Arthur didn't respond. Something about the woman's walk bothered him. She moved like someone who knew exactly where she was going. Veronica Chase sat directly behind Marcus in the front row. She wore a white Chanel suit and enough diamonds to blind someone. Her blonde hair was perfect. Her makeup was perfect. Everything about her screamed money and power. She watched Elena approach and let out a small laugh. "My God, Marcus, you actually married that? She looks like she crawled out of a shelter." Marcus reached back and squeezed Veronica's hand. "In about an hour, baby, you'll be Mrs. Devane, and she'll be nothing." Elena reached the defendant's table. There was no lawyer waiting for her, no paralegal, no assistant. Just an empty chair and a worn canvas bag she'd been carrying over her shoulder. She set the twins down gently on the bench behind her. They stirred, but didn't wake. She pulled a thin blanket from her bag and tucked it around them. Then she sat down. Judge Harrison Cole looked over his reading glasses at her. He was 64 years old and had presided over thousands of divorce cases. He'd seen billionaires weep. He'd seen housewives turn into warriors. But he'd never seen anyone walk into his courtroom barefoot. "Mrs. Devane," the judge said, "you're 7 minutes late, and you appear to be unrepresented." Elena stood. Her voice was quiet but steady. "I apologize for my appearance, Your Honor. My husband froze our accounts 3 weeks ago. I couldn't afford a lawyer. I couldn't afford a taxi. I walked here from Queens with my children because the bus fare was money I needed for their dinner tonight." A murmur rippled through the gallery. Reporters scribbled furiously. Marcus shifted in his seat. His lawyer put a hand on his arm, a warning. "She's playing the victim card," Arthur whispered. "Don't react. Look bored." Marcus forced his face into an expression of mild contempt, but something cold was sliding through his stomach. Elena had never been this calm. In 5 years of marriage, he'd seen her cry, beg, plead, argue. But this stillness. This was new. Veronica leaned forward. "Your Honor, is this really necessary?" "The woman is clearly unstable. She brought children to a divorce hearing." "Who does that?" Judge Cole's eyes snapped to Veronica. "Who are you?" "I'm Veronica Chase. I'm Marcus's—" "You're not a party to these proceedings. Speak again without permission, and I'll have you removed." Veronica's mouth opened and closed. She sat back, her face flushing red. Marcus squeezed her hand again, but his eyes stayed on Elena. She hadn't flinched at Veronica's insult. She hadn't even looked at her. That scared him more than anything. Arthur Blackwell stood smoothing his tie. He was the highest-paid divorce attorney in New York. He hadn't lost a case in 12 years. Your Honor, we're here on a straightforward matter. Mr. Devane and Mrs. Devane signed a prenuptial agreement 5 years ago. In the event of divorce, Mrs. Devane receives a settlement of $50,000 and waives all rights to spousal support and any claim on Devane Technologies. He pulled out a thick folder. Furthermore, we're petitioning for full custody of the minor children, Noah and Lily Devane. Mr. Devane can provide them with the best education, the best health care, the best environment. Mrs. Devane is currently living in a one-bedroom apartment in Queens. She has no income, no savings, no family support. She is by every measurable standard unfit to raise children of this caliber. Elena listened without interrupting. Her face remained still. Arthur continued, gaining confidence. Mrs. Devane was a waitress when they met. A waitress at a diner near Mr. Devane's first office. She had no college degree, no career prospects. Mr. Devane gave her everything a brownstone in Manhattan designer clothes, access to the finest social circles. And how did she repay him? By becoming distant, neglectful, obsessed with the children to the exclusion of her husband's needs. Veronica nodded along, her lips curled in satisfaction. In short, Your Honor, this is a simple case. Mrs. Devane signed away her rights. The prenup is ironclad. We ask the court to enforce it and grant Mr. Devane full custody of the children. Arthur sat down. He exchanged a look with Marcus Victory. Judge Cole turned to Elena. Mrs. Devane, you've heard the petition. You signed the prenuptial agreement. Do you have anything to say before I make my ruling? Elena stood slowly. She reached into her canvas bag. Her hand was shaking barely, almost imperceptibly, but it was shaking. She pulled out a brown manila envelope sealed with red tape. I have a few things to say, Your Honor. She placed the envelope on the judge's bench. I did sign the prenup. I signed it because I loved my husband. I didn't care about money. I never have. She looked at Marcus. For a moment, something human flickered in her eyes, grief maybe, or the ghost of love. When I met Marcus, I thought he was different. He was hungry, ambitious. He talked about changing the world through technology. I believed in him. I believed in us. Marcus felt the cold in his stomach spread to his chest. But Marcus seems to have forgotten something, Elena continued. He forgot a specific clause in the addendum, the clause regarding the origin of intellectual property. Arthur's head snapped up. What clause? There is. Elena's voice hardened. Appendix C, page 47. The clause that states any intellectual property created during the course of the marriage reverts to its original creator upon dissolution. Marcus laughed. It came out too loud, too sharp. Elena, baby, you didn't create anything. You made coffee. You changed diapers. I built Devane Technologies. I wrote the code. I closed the deals. You were just there. Elena turned to look at him, and for the first time she smiled. It was not a kind smile. You wrote the interface, Marcus, the pretty buttons, the user experience, but the code, the deep learning algorithm that makes the whole thing work, the predictive engine that every major bank and hedge fund pays millions to access. She paused. That was written by E.M. Elena Martinez, my maiden name. The room went silent. Arthur was flipping frantically through the prenup, searching for Appendix C. You're lying, Marcus said, but his voice cracked. Am I? Elena reached into her bag again. She pulled out a thick stack of papers. These are the original patent filings, dated 6 years ago, before we were married, before Devane Technologies even existed as a company. She spread them on the table. The algorithm was mine. I developed it during my graduate work at MIT. I shelved it because I didn't want to attract attention. When I met you, I thought I could trust you. I gave you my work because I believed we were partners. Marcus stood up so fast his chair scraped against the floor. This is insane. Elena, you told me you dropped out of college. You said you never finished your degree. I lied. 2 words. They landed like bombs. Judge Cole was reading the patent documents, his face growing paler with each page. I lied because I was tired, Elena continued. Tired of people wanting me for my family's money. Tired of people trying to use me. I wanted to disappear. I wanted to see if I could make it on my own. She looked at Marcus. I wanted to see if someone could love me for me, not for what I could give them. Veronica stood up her chair, scraping loudly. This is ridiculous. She's making this up. She's a waitress. She's nobody. Marcus, tell them. Sit down, Miss Chase, Judge Cole warned. But Veronica couldn't stop. I know who she is. I've seen her tips. She couldn't calculate a 15% gratuity without a calculator. There's no way she wrote I spilled coffee on you 3 years ago, Elena interrupted calmly. At the diner on Lexington. You were with Marcus. You thought I didn't recognize you, but I did. I recognized the woman who was sleeping with my husband. The color drained from Veronica's face. I didn't say anything because I wanted to see how far Marcus would go. I wanted to know what kind of man I had married. Elena turned back to the judge. Your Honor, the algorithm is only part of what I need to tell you. There's something else, something about who I really am. Judge Cole looked up from the documents. His hands were trembling slightly. Mrs. Devane, these patent filings list a trust as the assignee, the Aurora Legacy Trust. Yes, and this trust, it appears to own the majority of Devane Technologies. Yes. Marcus felt the room tilt. What? No, I own the company. I'm the CEO. I have the shares. I have the... You have a title. Elena cut him off. You have a salary, but you don't own anything. You never did. Arthur had finally found Appendix C. He was reading it with horror spreading across his face. Mr. Devane, Arthur said slowly. Did you read this? Did you read what you signed? I skimmed it. You said it was standard. This isn't standard. Arthur's voice was barely a whisper. This says that in the event of dissolution of marriage due to infidelity, all management rights revert to the trust administrator. All assets purchased with company funds become trust property. And the listed administrator is... He looked up at Elena. You. Veronica grabbed Marcus's arm. What does that mean? What is he saying? Marcus couldn't speak. His mouth moved, but no sound came out. Elena answered for him. It means Marcus doesn't own Devane Technologies. It means the brownstone he kicked me out of belongs to the trust. It means the penthouse he moved Veronica into was purchased with my money. And it means... She paused, letting the silence stretch. It means Marcus is in debt to me for every penny he spent on things that weren't household expenses. Judge Cole did some quick mental math. Mr. Devane, based on these documents, you appear to owe the Aurora Legacy Trust approximately $12 million. The sound Marcus made was not quite human. It was the sound of a man watching his entire world collapse into dust. Arthur started packing his briefcase. What are you doing? Marcus demanded. I'm leaving. My retainer was paid from a Devane Technologies account. That account is apparently controlled by your wife, which means I've been working for her this whole time without knowing it. You can't leave. You're my lawyer. I was your lawyer. Now I'm nobody's lawyer. Good luck, Mr. Devane. You're going to need it. Arthur walked out. The heavy doors closed behind him. Marcus turned to Veronica. Tiff, Veronica, baby, we need to think. We need to... But Veronica was already backing away from him. Her survival instincts were kicking in. She'd spent her whole life attaching herself to wealthy men. She knew when a ship was sinking. I didn't know, Veronica said loudly, looking at the judge. Your Honor, I had no idea about any of this. Marcus told me he owned everything. He told me she was just a leech. I'm a victim here. I'm as shocked as anyone. Veronica, Marcus's voice broke. What are you doing? I'm protecting myself. She pulled off the diamond bracelet Marcus had given her for her birthday. "Here, take it. I don't want anything that came from stolen money." She threw the bracelet on the floor. "You're throwing me under the bus," Marcus said, disbelief flooding his voice. "After everything I gave you. You gave me stolen goods. You made me an accomplice." Elena watched them turn on each other. She felt nothing. No satisfaction, no triumph. Just a hollow exhaustion that went bone deep. One of the twins stirred behind her. Lily's small voice rose up. "Mama." Elena turned immediately, her whole demeanor softening. "I'm here, baby. Go back to sleep." "Is the bad man going to yell again?" Elena stroked her daughter's hair. "No, sweetheart. The bad man is done yelling. He's going to be quiet now." She looked at Marcus. "Aren't you?" Marcus stared at his wife, this stranger he had lived with for 5 years. The waitress he had plucked from obscurity. The simple woman he had thought he could control. He had never known her at all. The courtroom doors opened again. 2 men in dark suits walked in. They moved with military precision. Behind them came a woman in a navy blazer holding up a badge. "FBI," she announced. "We have a warrant for the arrest of Marcus Devane and Veronica Chase." Veronica screamed. "What? Why me? I didn't do anything. Wire fraud, embezzlement, and attempted corporate espionage." The agent looked at Marcus. "Mr. Devane, were you aware that last week someone using your credentials attempted to sell the Devane Technologies algorithm to a foreign technology firm?" Marcus's face went gray. He looked at Veronica. You sent those emails." "You told me to find cash for the wedding," Veronica shrieked. "You said to be creative." "I said find cash, not sell the code. That's treason." "That's enough," the agent said. "You're both coming with us." The agents moved forward. Marcus was pushed against the table, his hands wrenched behind his back. The click of handcuffs echoed through the silent courtroom. Veronica kicked and screamed as they cuffed her. "This isn't fair. I didn't know I'm innocent. Marcus, tell them. Marcus!" But Marcus wasn't looking at her. He was looking at Elena. "You planned this," he said. "From the beginning. You planned all of it." Elena picked up Lily and took Noah's hand. "No, Marcus. I just paid attention. You were so busy looking down at everyone, you never noticed who was looking up." She turned to the judge. "Your Honor, may I take my children home now? It's past their nap time." Judge Cole looked at the chaos unfolding before him, the handcuffed CEO, the screaming Mistress, the reporters going wild in the gallery. Then he looked at the mother standing calm in the center of the storm, holding her children. "Case dismissed," he said. "Go home, Mrs. Devane." Elena walked toward the doors. The crowd parted for her. But just before she reached the exit, a man stepped into her path. He was older, maybe 60, with a scar running down his left cheek. He wore a black suit that probably cost more than the average American's annual salary. His eyes were cold. "Miss Elena," he said, "your father sends his regards." Elena froze. "My father is in a coma. He's been in a coma for 3 years." The man smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. "Miracles happen. The car is waiting." Elena looked at her children. She looked at the courtroom behind her where Marcus was being dragged away in handcuffs. She had won the battle. But looking at this man, she realized the war was just beginning. "Lead the way," she said. And she walked out of the courtroom into the blinding flash of 100 cameras toward a future she couldn't predict and a past she thought she'd escaped. The black SUV smelled of leather and something else, something chemical, like the air in a hospital. Elena clutched Noah and Lily against her chest as the vehicle pulled away from the courthouse. The tinted windows turned the Manhattan skyline into a blur of gray shapes. The man with the scar sat across from her. He hadn't spoken since they got in the car. He just watched her with those cold, calculating eyes. "Where are we going?" Elena asked. "The Hamptons, the estate." Elena's stomach dropped. She hadn't been to that house in over 10 years. She'd sworn she would never go back. "I'm not taking my children there." The man, she remembered his name now, Silas, her father's head of security, since before she was born, tilted his head slightly. "Miss Elena, your father is dying. He wants to see his grandchildren before he goes. Surely you can grant a dying man that small kindness." "My father doesn't do kindness. He does transactions." Silas smiled. It was the smile of a wolf watching a rabbit. "You've grown up. Good. You'll need that spine for what comes next." Noah stirred in her arms. His small voice was thick with sleep. "Mama, where are we going?" "We're going to meet someone, baby. It'll be okay." But even as she said the words, Elena wasn't sure she believed them. The drive took 2 hours. Elena watched the city give way to suburbs, then to the sprawling estates of the ultra-wealthy. The houses got bigger. The walls got higher. The security cameras multiplied. Finally, they turned onto a private road. Iron gates swung open automatically. The SUV rolled up a gravel driveway lined with oak trees that had been planted before the Civil War. And there it was. The Ashworth estate rose up from the manicured lawn like a Gothic cathedral. It was all gray stone and pointed spires built by Elena's great-great-grandfather with money made in railroads and steel. 27 bedrooms, 15 bathrooms, a ballroom that could hold 300 guests. Elena had spent the first 19 years of her life in this house. She had learned to walk on its marble floors. She had learned to read in its vast library. She had learned to be afraid in its shadowy hallways. The SUV stopped at the front entrance. Silas opened the door. "He's in the library. He's been waiting." Elena stepped out, holding the twins' hands. The wind off the Atlantic was cold and sharp. It cut through her thin dress. "Elena." Silas's voice stopped her. "A word of advice. Don't lie to him. He already knows everything. He's known for years." Elena turned to look at him. "If he's known everything, why didn't he stop the marriage? Why didn't he stop any of it?" "That's not my question to answer." Elena walked up the stone steps. The massive wooden doors swung open before she reached them. 2 servants in black uniforms stood on either side, their faces blank. The foyer was exactly as she remembered. Marble floors, a chandelier that cost more than most houses, paintings on the walls that belonged in museums. Cold, beautiful, empty. "This way, ma'am," one of the servants said. Elena followed, pulling the children along. Noah's eyes were huge, taking in the vast space. Lily pressed closer to her mother's leg. "Mama, this place is scary." "I know, baby. We won't stay long." They walked down a long corridor lined with portraits. Ashworth ancestors stared down at them with painted eyes. Merchants, industrialists, senators, robber barons who had built empires on the backs of workers and then posed for paintings in their finest clothes. Elena's father was the latest in that line, and he was the most dangerous of them all. The library doors were mahogany carved with wolves and ravens. Elena pushed them open. The room was dark, lit only by a fire crackling in a massive stone hearth. Books lined the walls from floor to ceiling, thousands of them, leather-bound and ancient. The air smelled of smoke and old paper. And there, in a high-backed leather chair facing the fire, sat William Ashworth. Elena hadn't seen her father in 10 years. She'd expected him to look frail, dying. Instead, he looked exactly as she remembered, sharp-featured, silver-haired, with pale blue eyes that missed nothing. He was thinner, maybe. His skin was more papery. But the predator was still there, watching from behind those eyes. Serafina. Elena flinched at her birth name. No one had called her that in a decade. "My name is Elena now." "Names are masks. We wear them when convenient." William's eyes dropped to the twins. "And who are these?" "Your grandchildren, Noah and Lily." William studied them the way a collector might study specimens. Clinical. Assessing. Strong jawlines. Good bone structure. They have the Ashworth look. "They're children, not breeding stock." William smiled. It was a thin, cold thing. "Sit down, Serafina. We have much to discuss." I'll stand. Sit. Down. The command cracked through the air like a whip. Elena felt her legs move before her brain could stop them. Old habits. Old fear. She sat in the chair across from her father, pulling the twins onto her lap. William watched her with something like satisfaction. You've done well today. The courtroom, the documents, the timing. You destroyed that man completely. I was impressed. I wasn't trying to impress you. No. You were trying to protect them. He gestured at the children. Admirable, maternal, weak. Elena's arms tightened around the twins. Why am I here, Father? You said you were in a coma. I was never in a coma. I've been watching, testing, waiting to see if you had any Ashworth left in you or if you'd become completely domesticated. Testing me for what? William reached for a glass of amber liquid on the side table. He took a slow sip. I'm dying. For real this time. 6 months, maybe less. The doctors in Switzerland have tried everything. My liver is failing. My kidneys are shutting down. The empire needs an heir, Serafina. And despite your best efforts to pretend otherwise, you are my only child. Elena felt a strange mix of emotions. Grief. No. She'd grieved for her father long ago, when she realized the man who raised her was incapable of love. This was something else. Relief, maybe, and underneath that fear. What do you want from me? I want you to come home. Take your place at the head of the family. Learn the business. The real business, not that technology toy you gave your husband. Ex-husband. Soon to be. Yes. William waved his hand dismissively. The point is, you've proven yourself today. You're ruthless when you need to be. That's good. That's necessary. But you're also sentimental. That needs to change. Elena stood up abruptly, lifting the children. I'm not staying here. I'm not raising my children in this house. You can leave your empire to whoever you want. I don't want it. She turned toward the door. If you walk out that door, William said calmly, your children walk into poverty. Elena stopped. The trust controls everything, Serafina. Your technology company, your patents, your bank accounts. And I control the trust. I can give you the keys to a $40 billion kingdom, or I can leave you with nothing but the clothes on your back. Elena turned slowly. You would do that to your own grandchildren. I would do what's necessary to secure the family legacy. Always have. Always will. Elena's mind was racing. She thought about the envelope she'd given the judge, the documents proving her ownership, the patents, the contracts. But those documents only proved she owned the intellectual property. The trust, the real power, was still in her father's hands. What exactly are you proposing? Elena asked. William smiled. He'd won, and he knew it. Sit down. Let me explain. Elena sat. But this time she kept her back straight and her eyes hard. The Aurora Legacy Trust was established by your grandfather in 1962. It controls the family's core assets, the real estate, the financial instruments, the political connections. Everything else, the companies, the patents, the public wealth is derivative, controlled by the trust, but not the trust itself. He paused, letting that sink in. When you ran away, I could have cut you off. Instead, I let you keep your access to the intellectual property portfolio. I wanted to see what you would do with it. You were testing me, even then. I'm always testing you. That's how dynasties survive. The weak are culled, the strong are elevated. Elena felt sick. So you let me marry Marcus. You let me give him my work. You watched me struggle for 5 years. All of it was a test. And you passed, magnificently. William leaned forward. Today you didn't just divorce a cheating husband. You executed a hostile takeover of your own life. You used legal structures as weapons. You anticipated his moves and countered them. You even arranged for the FBI to arrest him. Don't look surprised. I know you were the one who tipped them off about the espionage. Elena said nothing. That kind of strategic thinking is exactly what this family needs. What I need. From you. And if I refuse? William's expression hardened. Then I sign the trust over to the Ashworth Foundation upon my death. The board will liquidate everything. Your technology company will be sold to the highest bidder, probably a Chinese firm that's been circling for years. Your patents will be licensed out. Your children's inheritance will be donated to charity. He paused. You'll be left with nothing, and I mean nothing. No house, no savings, no connections. You'll go back to waitressing Serafina. Except this time, you'll be 40 with 2 children and no safety net. Elena stared at him. You would destroy your own legacy just to punish me. I would destroy anything to get what I want. That's what makes me an Ashworth. And that's what you need to become. The fire crackled. The twins were getting restless, squirming on Elena's lap. Mama, I'm hungry, Noah whispered. I know, baby, soon. Elena looked at her father. She thought about all the years she'd spent running from this moment. She'd changed her name, changed her appearance, built a completely different life, and still somehow she'd ended up right back here. But she wasn't 19 anymore. She wasn't the frightened girl who had fled in the middle of the night with nothing but a backpack and a fake ID. She was a mother, and mothers did whatever was necessary to protect their children. I want the terms in writing, Elena said. Full control of the trust upon your death. Complete autonomy over how I run the businesses. No interference from your lawyers or your board. William raised an eyebrow. You're negotiating? I'm establishing terms. If you want me to be an Ashworth, then treat me like one. For a long moment, William just looked at her. Then slowly, a genuine smile spread across his face. It was the first real emotion Elena had seen from him. There she is. There's my daughter. He pressed a button on the arm of his chair. A moment later, Silas appeared in the doorway. Have the lawyers draw up the succession documents. My daughter will be reviewing them tonight. William turned back to Elena. We'll have dinner together, all of us. A family meal. The children need to sleep. It's been a long day. Then they'll sleep here. We have 27 bedrooms. Pick one. Elena wanted to argue. She wanted to grab her children and run out the door into the night. But she couldn't. Not yet. Not until she had leverage. Fine. One night. Then I'm taking them back to the city. We'll see. William waved his hand. Silas, show my daughter to the East Wing, and have the kitchen prepare something for the children. Something simple. They're not used to real food. Elena stood her jaw tight. Father? William looked up. I'm not staying because you threatened me. I'm staying because I need to understand what I'm dealing with. But make no mistake, I will never let you control me, or my children. If you try, I will burn this entire empire to the ground before I let you have them. William's smile didn't waver. That's exactly what I'm counting on. Elena turned and walked out of the library, Silas falling into step beside her. He's not as strong as he pretends, Silas said quietly as they walked. The illness is real. 6 months might be generous. Elena didn't respond. Your mother was like you, fierce, protective. She was the only one he ever loved. Elena stopped walking. Her mother had died when she was 7. A car accident on a rainy night. At least that's what she'd been told. Don't talk about my mother. I'm just saying he sees her in you. That's why he wants you back. That's why he let you go in the first place. Elena turned to face him. Silas, you've worked for my father for 30 years. You've done terrible things for him. Don't pretend we're friends. Don't pretend you're on my side. Silas's scarred face was unreadable. I'm not on anyone's side, Miss Elena. I'm on the winning side, and right now I'm not sure which side that is. He gestured down the hallway. The East Wing. 3rd door on the left. The room has a lock. I suggest you use it. Elena gathered her children and walked away. She didn't look back. The room was enormous, bigger than the entire apartment she'd been living in for the past 3 weeks. A 4-poster bed, a marble bathroom, a view of the ocean through floor-to-ceiling windows. Elena locked the door. Then she pushed a heavy dresser in front of it. Mama. Lily's voice was small. Are we safe here? Elena knelt down and pulled both children into her arms. We're safe, baby. Mama won't let anything happen to you. I don't like that old man, Noah said. His eyes are scary. I know, but we only have to stay for one night, then we're going home. Promise? Elena hesitated. She wasn't sure she could keep that promise, but she said it anyway. Promise. She put the children to bed, tucking them under silk sheets that probably cost more than her monthly rent. She sat on the edge of the mattress watching them fall asleep. Her mind was racing. Her father had trapped her. Checkmate, he would call it. But Elena had learned a lot about chess in the past 5 years. She'd learned that even when you seemed cornered, there was always a move. You just had to find it. She thought about the documents she'd shown in court. The patents, the trust assignments. Everything proved that she owned the intellectual property. But her father was right. The trust controlled everything else. Unless... Elena pulled out her phone. She had 1 bar of signal, barely enough. She opened a secure browser and navigated to a server she hadn't accessed in years. The password came back to her like muscle memory. She was in. Lines of code scrolled across the screen. This was the backdoor she'd built into the Ashworth systems when she was 17. A secret passage she'd created in case she ever needed to run. She'd never used it, but she'd never deleted it either. Now, 10 years later, she started to explore. The files were massive. Financial records, communication logs, transaction histories. Everything the Ashworth Empire had done for the past decade was here, buried in encrypted folders. Elena didn't have time to read it all, but she didn't need to. She just needed to find leverage, something her father didn't know she had. It took her 2 hours. The children slept. The house was silent, and Elena scrolled through data searching for the needle in the haystack. She found it at 2:47 a.m., a folder labeled Project Oversight. Inside were hundreds of documents detailing payments to foreign officials, bribes, kickbacks, illegal arms deals, and at the bottom a series of communications between William Ashworth and a man named Viktor Kozlov, a Russian oligarch who had been sanctioned by the U.S. government for years. Her father hadn't just been doing business. He'd been committing treason. Elena stared at the screen. Her hands were shaking. This was it. This was her leverage. If she released these documents, her father would spend whatever remained of his life in prison. The empire would be seized. The family name would be destroyed. But so would the children's inheritance. So would their future. Elena closed her eyes. She thought about Marcus being led away in handcuffs. She thought about Veronica screaming as the FBI took her. She thought about all the people her father had hurt, all the lives he had ruined. And then she thought about Noah and Lily, sleeping peacefully in the bed behind her. She couldn't release the documents. Not yet. But she could use them. Elena downloaded everything onto an encrypted drive. Then she erased her traces from the server and closed the browser. Tomorrow she would face her father again. And this time she would be holding all the cards. She climbed into bed next to her children. Lily immediately curled against her, seeking warmth. Noah mumbled something in his sleep. Elena stared at the ceiling. Her father thought he had won. He thought she was trapped. But William Ashworth had forgotten one thing. He'd spent 40 years teaching his daughter how to be ruthless, how to be strategic, how to destroy enemies without mercy. He'd just never expected her to use those lessons against him. Elena closed her eyes. Tomorrow, the real game would begin. Elena woke to the sound of knocking. Sharp, insistent. She sat up in bed, heart pounding. Miss Elena. Silas's voice came through the door. Your father requests your presence at breakfast, immediately. She checked her phone. 6:47 a.m. She'd slept less than 4 hours. Give me 20 minutes. He said immediately. Elena looked at the twins still sleeping. She didn't want to wake them. She didn't want to bring them anywhere near her father. I'm not leaving my children alone in this house. A pause. Then Silas said, "I'll have Maria sit with them. She was your nanny once. You remember her." Elena did remember. Maria had been the only kind person in this entire mansion. The only one who had ever hugged her, told her stories, made her feel like a child instead of an asset. "Fine. But if anything happens to them—" "Nothing will happen. You have my word." Elena got dressed quickly. She splashed cold water on her face and looked at herself in the mirror. Dark circles under her eyes. Hair tangled. Skin pale. She looked like a woman who had been through war. Good. That's what she was. Maria arrived a few minutes later. She was older now, gray-haired and soft around the edges, but her eyes were the same, warm and worried. "Miss Elena?" Maria took her hands. "I prayed for you. Every day since you left." "Maria." Elena squeezed back. "Watch them. Don't let anyone in this room. Anyone." "I understand." Elena walked out, following Silas through the maze of hallways. The house was already alive with activity servants moving silently, carrying trays and linens. The smell of coffee drifted from somewhere. The dining room was a cathedral of excess. A table that could seat 30. Crystal chandeliers. Windows overlooking the ocean. And at the head of the table, looking smaller than he had the night before, sat William Ashworth. He wasn't alone. 3 men in suits sat to his right. Elena recognized the oldest one, Harold Winters, her father's personal attorney for the past 30 years. The other 2 were younger, hungry-looking, with the sharp eyes of corporate sharks. "Sit down, Serafina." William gestured to the chair across from him. "We have business to discuss." Elena sat. She didn't touch the food on her plate. "I thought we were having a family breakfast." "This is family business." Harold explained the terms. Harold Winters cleared his throat. He was 70 if he was a day with a voice like gravel. "Miss Ashworth, your father has prepared a succession agreement. Upon his death, you will assume control of the Aurora Legacy Trust, including all subsidiary holdings, real estate portfolios, and financial instruments." He slid a thick document across the table. "In exchange, you agree to the following conditions. First, you will relocate to this estate and oversee your father's care during his remaining months. Second, you will enroll the children in the Ashworth Academy, a private institution that has educated 5 generations of your family. Third, you will not remarry without approval from the Trust's advisory board. And fourth—" "Stop!" Elena's voice cut through the room. "I said stop." Harold looked at William. William waved his hand. "Let her speak." Elena pushed the document back across the table. "I'm not signing this." William's eyes narrowed. "You haven't even read it." "I don't need to. You're not giving me control. You're giving me a cage with gold bars." She stood up, planting her hands on the table. "Relocate to this house. You want to trap me here where you can watch my every move. Enroll my children in your academy. You want to indoctrinate them, turn them into little soldiers for your empire. And I can't remarry without board approval. You're trying to control who I love for the rest of my life." She leaned forward. "This isn't succession, Father. This is ownership, and I'm not for sale." The room went silent. The 2 young lawyers exchanged nervous glances. Harold Winters looked like he'd swallowed a lemon. William took a slow sip of his coffee. "You're being emotional, Serafina. These conditions are standard for families of our stature. The Rockefellers have similar clauses. The Rothschilds. I don't care what other families do. I care about my children, and I will not raise them in this prison." William set down his cup. His expression hardened. "Then we have nothing to discuss. Silas, escort my daughter and her children off the property. They can find their own way back to Queens." He turned back to his lawyers. "Begin the process of transferring the trust to the foundation. Liquidate all holdings. Donate everything to charity. If my daughter wants to be poor, I'll make sure she gets her wish." Elena felt her heart hammering. This was it. The moment of truth. She reached into her pocket and pulled out the encrypted drive. "Father." William looked up. Before you make any decisions, you might want to see what's on this. She tossed the drive onto the table. It skittered across the polished wood and stopped in front of Harold Winters. "What is that?" William asked. "Insurance. Open it." Harold looked at William. William nodded. One of the young lawyers produced a laptop. He plugged in the drive and opened the first folder. The color drained from his face. "Sir, this is—" "Read it out loud." The lawyer swallowed hard. "It's a communication log between you and someone named Victor Kozlov, dated 3 years ago." William's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "The conversation discusses payment transfers to government officials in Ukraine and Georgia. It references weapons shipments, and it includes bank account numbers in the Cayman Islands that—" "That's enough." William's voice was ice. The lawyer stopped. The room was dead silent. Elena watched her father. His face was a mask, but she could see the calculations happening behind his eyes, the threat assessment, the damage control. "Where did you get this?" William asked quietly. "From the server you thought no one could access. The one you built when I was 16. You had me design the security protocols. Remember? You said it would be a good learning experience." Elena smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. "You taught me everything, Father, including how to leave back doors." William stared at her for a long moment. Then slowly he began to laugh. It was a dry rattling sound. It went on for several seconds. The lawyers looked terrified. "Silas," William said finally, "leave us, all of you, now." The lawyers scrambled to their feet. Silas hesitated. "Sir?" "I said, leave." Silas nodded once and walked out. The doors closed behind them with a heavy thud. Father and daughter were alone. "You're blackmailing me," William said. "I'm negotiating. There's a difference." "The difference being, blackmail is crude. You taught me to be surgical." Elena sat back down. "Those files are currently stored on 3 separate encrypted servers, one in Switzerland, one in Singapore, one in Iceland. If I don't enter a specific code every 24 hours, they automatically upload to the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, the FBI, the CIA, and Interpol." William's eyes flickered, just for a second. But Elena caught it. "You're bluffing." "Am I?" She pulled out her phone and showed him the screen. A countdown timer. 22-14-37, 22-14-36, 22-14-35. In about 22 hours, the world finds out that William Ashworth isn't just a businessman. He's a war criminal, an arms dealer, a traitor to his country. She put the phone away. "Or you can give me what I want, and these files never see the light of day." William studied her. His expression was unreadable. "What do you want?" "Full control of the trust. Effective immediately, not upon your death. I become the sole administrator with complete authority over all assets and decisions." "That's not possible. The trust has a board." "Dissolve the board. You have the power. Use it." William's jaw tightened. "What else?" "I want the children's inheritance secured in their names, untouchable by you or anyone else. They get full access when they turn 25. "Fine. I want a residence of my choosing. Not this house. Somewhere I pick. Fully funded by the trust." "Agreed. And I want you to stay away from us." That landed. Elena saw it in the flash of pain that crossed her father's face before he masked it. "You're my only family," William said quietly. "They're my only grandchildren. You would cut me off completely. You threatened to take my children. You threatened to leave us with nothing. You've spent my entire life treating me like a chess piece instead of a daughter." Elena's voice cracked slightly. "So yes, I'm cutting you off. Because I don't trust you. And I never will." Silence stretched between them. The fire crackled. Outside, waves crashed against the cliffs. "I was trying to make you strong," William said finally. "The world is cruel, Serafina. It destroys the weak. I didn't want that for you. You don't make someone strong by breaking them. You make them afraid. And then they spend their whole life running from you. She stood up. Do we have a deal? William looked at her. For a moment he looked old. Truly old. A dying man facing the end of everything he'd built. You really hate me that much? Elena considered the question. Did she hate him? She had spent years telling herself she did. Years of therapy trying to unpack the damage he'd done. Years of nightmares about this house, this room, this man. But standing here now looking at the hollow shell of the monster from her childhood, she realized hate wasn't the right word. I don't hate you, Father. I pity you. You have all the money in the world, and you're going to die alone. That's the saddest thing I've ever seen. William flinched like she'd slapped him. Then his face hardened again. The vulnerability disappeared behind the mask. Fine. You want control? Take it. But remember what I told you, Serafina. Owning the crown is easy. Keeping it is hard. There are people out there, people I've kept at bay for decades, who will come for you the moment they sense weakness. I'm not weak. No, you're not. He almost smiled. You're finally an Ashworth. He pressed a button on the table. A moment later, Silas appeared. Have Harold draw up new documents. My daughter is taking control of the trust immediately. She has full authority over all assets and decisions. Silas's scarred face showed nothing. Yes, sir. And Silas, start packing my things. I'll be relocating to the Swiss property. It seems I'm no longer welcome in my own home. He looked at Elena one last time. Congratulations, Serafina. You win. He walked out of the dining room, leaning heavily on his cane. He didn't look back. Elena stood there trembling. She had won. She had actually won. But why did it feel like losing? She walked back to the east wing in a daze. Maria was sitting by the window, the twins playing on the floor with wooden blocks. Mama! Noah ran to her, throwing his arms around her legs. Elena knelt down and hugged both children so tight they squeaked. We're going home, she whispered. We're going home, and we're never coming back. Is the scary old man gone? Lily asked. Yes, baby. He's gone. Maria stood up, her eyes questioning. It's over, Elena told her. We have everything we need. Will you come with us? I could use someone I trust. Maria's eyes filled with tears. I've waited 10 years for you to ask that. They left the estate that afternoon. A helicopter took them back to Manhattan. Elena watched the Gothic mansion shrink beneath them, becoming smaller and smaller, until it was just a gray speck on the coastline. Good riddance. The next few weeks were a blur of lawyers and documents and meetings. Elena worked 18-hour days learning the true scope of what she now controlled. The Aurora Legacy Trust was bigger than she had imagined. Real estate across 6 continents, stakes in major corporations, political connections that reached into governments around the world, and underneath it all, a web of secrets that could bring down kings. She hired a team of forensic accountants to untangle the legitimate business from the criminal enterprise. The arms dealing, the bribery, the money laundering. All of it had to be excised like a tumor. It would take years, maybe decades. But she would do it. 2 weeks after leaving the Hamptons, Elena received a call from a number she didn't recognize. Mrs. Devane. A woman's voice. Professional. It's Ms. Martinez now? Of course. Ms. Martinez, this is Agent Michelle Torres with the FBI. We spoke briefly at the courthouse. Elena's stomach tightened. Is this about Marcus? Partially. Mr. Devane has been cooperative. He's providing information about his contacts in exchange for a reduced sentence. But that's not why I'm calling. Elena waited. We've become aware that you recently acquired control of the Aurora Legacy Trust, a trust that has been on our radar for some time. Elena's grip tightened on the phone. I'm conducting my own internal investigation. I'm cleaning house. If you give me time. That's exactly what I wanted to hear. Agent Torres's voice warmed slightly. "We're not looking to take you down, Ms. Martinez. We're looking for an ally. Someone on the inside who can help us understand the scope of your father's operations." "You want me to inform on my own father?" "I want you to help us make sure the weapons he sold don't end up killing American soldiers. I want you to help us recover the money he funneled to sanctioned regimes. I want you to help us bring some very bad people to justice." Elena closed her eyes. She thought about the files on the encrypted drive, the names, the dates, the body counts hidden behind corporate jargon. "What do you need from me?" "A meeting. Tomorrow. I'll come to you." "Fine. But my children stay out of this. If anyone threatens them, no one will touch your children, Ms. Martinez. You have my word." Elena hung up. She sat in silence for a long moment. Then she picked up the phone and made another call. "Harold, it's Elena. I need you to set up a meeting with the Board of Devane Technologies tomorrow afternoon." "What's the agenda?" "Restructuring. I'm firing everyone Marcus hired, and I'm changing the name of the company." "To what?" Elena looked out the window at the Manhattan skyline. Somewhere out there, Marcus was sitting in a cell, learning what it felt like to lose everything. Somewhere, Veronica was working a retail job, her dreams of being a billionaire's wife turned to ash. And somewhere, William Ashworth was dying alone in a Swiss clinic, finally understanding that his daughter had become something he never anticipated. "Aurora," Elena said. "The company is called Aurora now." She hung up. The battle was won, but the war was just beginning. That night, Elena put the twins to bed in their new apartment. It was a penthouse on Fifth Avenue, $20 million, fully funded by the trust. It had bulletproof windows, a panic room, and 24-hour security. She wasn't taking any chances. "Mama," Noah's voice came from the darkness. "Yes, baby." "Are we rich now?" Elena laughed softly. "Yes, sweetheart, we're rich." "Duh. Does that mean we can have ice cream for breakfast?" "Sometimes. Not every day." "Okay." He was quiet for a moment. "Mama." "Yes." "I'm glad the bad man is gone. The one with the scary eyes." Elena stroked his hair. "Me too, baby. Me too." She sat there in the darkness long after both children fell asleep. She thought about everything that had happened. The courtroom, the revelation, the confrontation with her father, the FBI, the company, the trust. 6 months ago, she had been a waitress living in a queen's apartment, wondering how she would feed her children. Now she controlled a $40 billion empire. The irony wasn't lost on her. She had spent 10 years running from wealth, trying to prove she didn't need it. And in the end, wealth had become her weapon. The very thing she despised had saved her children. Maybe that was the lesson. Money wasn't good or evil, it was just power, and power was whatever you made of it. Her phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "Congratulations on your victory. But remember, your father had enemies. Now they're yours. Watch your back. A friend." Elena stared at the message. Her heart rate spiked. She walked to the window and looked out at the city below. Millions of lights. Millions of people. And somewhere among them, someone was watching. She thought about deleting the message, ignoring it, going to sleep and pretending everything was fine. Instead, she saved the number and typed a reply. "Who are you?" 3 dots appeared. Someone was typing. Then, someone who knew your mother. Someone who knows the truth about how she died. Elena's blood went cold. Her mother had died in a car accident. That was what she'd been told. That was what everyone had always said. But standing in the darkness, staring at that message, Elena suddenly wasn't sure of anything. She typed back, "Meet me, tomorrow. Name the place." The response came immediately. "Central Park, the Bethesda Fountain, noon. Come alone." Elena looked at her sleeping children. She looked at the message on her phone. Her father had warned her. The crown was easy to take. Keeping it was hard. She was about to find out just how hard. Elena arrived at Bethesda Fountain 20 minutes early. She wore sunglasses and a baseball cap, her hair tucked underneath. She looked like any other New Yorker enjoying a spring afternoon in Central Park. But her heart was pounding so hard she could feel it in her throat. She had left the twins with Maria and 2 security guards. She had told no one where she was going. The message had said, "Come alone," and she had. Maybe that was stupid. Maybe she was walking into a trap. But the message had mentioned her mother, and Elena would walk into 100 traps for the truth about what happened to Catherine Ashworth. The fountain was crowded with tourists taking photos and children throwing coins into the water. Elena found a bench with a clear view of all approaches and sat down. 11:47. 13 minutes. She watched the people around her. A man with a newspaper. A woman pushing a stroller. A group of teenagers laughing at something on a phone. Any of them could be a threat, or none of them. 11:55. A figure appeared at the edge of the plaza. A woman, older, maybe 60, with silver hair cut short and practical. She wore a simple gray coat and walked with the confidence of someone who had been dangerous once. The woman scanned the crowd. Her eyes found Elena. She smiled slightly and walked over. "You came alone. Good." Elena didn't stand. "Who are you?" The woman sat down on the bench, leaving a careful distance between them. "My name is Margaret Chen. I worked for your father for 15 years. I was head of security before Silas." Elena studied her face. There was something familiar about it, something she couldn't quite place. "Why did you leave?" "I didn't leave. I was removed. Your father discovered I was investigating something he wanted kept buried. My mother's death." Margaret nodded slowly. "Catherine was my friend. The only real friend I ever had in that house. When she died, I didn't believe it was an accident, so I started digging." Elena's hands were trembling. She pressed them against her thighs. "What did you find?" Margaret was quiet for a long moment. She watched a group of pigeons fighting over breadcrumbs. "The night your mother died, she wasn't alone in the car. There was someone with her, a man named David Reyes. He was your mother's lawyer. He had been helping her prepare divorce papers." Elena felt the ground tilt beneath her. "Divorce papers. Your mother was leaving your father, Elena. She had been planning it for months. She was going to take you with her. She had evidence of his criminal activities, evidence she was planning to give to the FBI." Elena couldn't breathe. The sounds of the park faded away. All she could hear was the rushing of blood in her ears. The accident happened on a stretch of road with no witnesses. The brakes failed. The car went off a cliff into the Hudson. Both bodies were recovered. The death was ruled accidental. Margaret turned to look at Elena directly. "But I found the mechanic who serviced that car 3 days before the crash. He told me someone paid him $50,000 to tamper with the brake lines. He was killed in a robbery 2 weeks later, shot in the head." Elena's vision was blurring. She realized she was crying. "My father killed her. I couldn't prove it, not then, but I kept digging. I found financial records showing payments to the mechanic. I found phone records showing your father knew exactly where your mother would be that night. I found a witness who saw a black SUV following the car just before the crash." Margaret reached into her coat and pulled out a thick envelope. "I've spent 15 years building this case. Every document, every witness statement, every piece of evidence. It's all here." She held out the envelope. Elena stared at it. Her mother's face flashed through her mind. Catherine Ashworth had been beautiful, kind, warm. She used to sing Elena to sleep. She used to hold her when she had nightmares. And then one day, she was gone. And Elena had spent the rest of her childhood alone in that cold, dark house with a father who didn't know how to love. "Why are you giving this to me?" Elena whispered. "Because I'm dying too. Cancer. Same as your father, ironically. I have maybe 3 months left." Margaret smiled sadly. "I wanted to see justice done before I go. But I can't do it alone. I don't have the resources, the connections, the power." She pressed the envelope into Elena's hands. "But you do. You have everything you need to bring him down. The question is whether you're willing to use it." Elena looked at the envelope. It felt heavy. Heavier than paper and ink should feel. "If I release this, my father goes to prison. He dies there, alone." "Yes." "And the family name is destroyed. The business, everything he built." "Yes." "And my children grow up knowing their grandfather was a murderer." Margaret was silent. Elena closed her eyes. She thought about the twins, their innocent faces, their trust in her to protect them from the ugliness of the world. She thought about her father dying alone in a Swiss clinic. She had told him she pitied him. She had told him she didn't hate him. Had that been true, or had she been lying to herself? "There's something else," Margaret said quietly. "Something I debated whether to tell you." Elena opened her eyes. "Your mother wasn't just gathering evidence against your father's crimes. She had discovered something else, something about your birth." Elena's heart stopped. "What about my birth?" Margaret hesitated. Her eyes were filled with something that looked like pity. "William Ashworth isn't your biological father." The words landed like a physical blow. Elena felt them in her chest, her stomach, her bones. "That's impossible." Catherine had an affair. It was brief, passionate, and secret. She became pregnant. William didn't know until you were 2 years old, when a blood test during a routine medical procedure revealed that you couldn't be his biological child. Elena was shaking her head. No, that doesn't make sense. If he knew I wasn't his, he kept you because he had no other heirs. Because divorcing Catherine and admitting the truth would have been a public humiliation. And because by then, you showed signs of brilliance, mathematical ability, strategic thinking. You were useful to him, even if you weren't truly his. Margaret reached out and touched Elena's arm. "Your real father was a man named James Porter. He was an artist, a painter. He died in a car accident 6 months after you were born." Elena stared at her. "Another car accident. I don't know if it was connected. I couldn't find evidence either way, but I thought you should know the truth. All of it." Elena sat in silence for a long time. The world continued around her children, laughing birds, singing water, splashing in the fountain. But she was somewhere else entirely. Her entire life had been a lie. The man who raised her wasn't her father. The mother she had idolized had kept secrets. The identity she had built, Ashworth Vanderhoven Martinez, all of it was constructed on a foundation of sand. "Elena," Margaret's voice was gentle. "Are you all right?" Elena laughed. It was a broken, desperate sound. "No, I'm not all right. I don't think I've ever been all right." She looked at the envelope in her hands. "What would you do if you were me?" Margaret considered the question carefully. "I would ask myself what kind of world I want my children to inherit. I would ask myself whether justice matters more than comfort. And I would ask myself whether I can live with the truth or whether I need to bury it to survive." She stood up slowly, her joints creaking. "I've done my part. The rest is up to you." She started to walk away. "Margaret," the older woman turned. "Thank you for telling me, for caring about my mother." Margaret smiled. It transformed her face, made her look younger. "Catherine was the best person I ever knew. She deserved better than what she got, and so do you." She walked away and disappeared into the crowd. Elena sat on the bench for another hour holding the envelope. She didn't open it. She wasn't ready. When she finally got up and walked home, the sun was setting. The city was turning gold and orange, beautiful and indifferent. That night, after the twins were asleep, Elena locked herself in her study and opened the envelope. There were hundreds of pages inside. Police reports, financial records, witness statements, photographs, medical documents, and at the bottom a letter, addressed to her, in her mother's handwriting. Elena's hands shook as she unfolded it. "My darling Serafina, if you're reading this, then something has happened to me. I'm so sorry, my love. I tried to protect you. I tried to build a way out for both of us. But your father has eyes everywhere, and I fear he knows what I'm planning. I want you to know the truth. I want you to know that you were conceived in love. Your biological father, James, was the kindest man I ever met. He didn't know about you. I never had the chance to tell him before he died. But he would have loved you. I know that with all my heart. William isn't capable of love. He's capable of possession, of control, of using people until they have nothing left to give. I realized too late what kind of man I had married. But you, my darling, you are different. You have light inside you. Don't let him extinguish it. Don't let him turn you into what he is. If something happens to me, run. Take whatever you can and disappear. Build a new life somewhere he can't find you. Be happy. Be free. And if someday you have children of your own, tell them about me. Tell them their grandmother loved them before they even existed. Tell them love is worth fighting for, even when it seems hopeless. I love you, Serafina. I love you more than words can say. Be brave. Be kind. Be everything he isn't. Your mother, Catherine. Elena read the letter 3 times. By the 3rd time, she was sobbing so hard she could barely see the words. Her mother had known. She had known she was in danger, and she had written this letter anyway. She had tried to save them both. And William had killed her for it. Elena spent the next 3 days locked in her study, reading every document in the envelope. She cross-referenced dates and names and account numbers. She built a timeline of events leading up to her mother's death. Margaret was right. The evidence was overwhelming. William Ashworth had murdered his wife. On the 4th day, Elena made a decision. She called Agent Torres. I have something for you. Something about my father. I'm listening. Not over the phone. Come to my apartment. Bring whoever you need. But come prepared. This is bigger than the arms dealing. This is murder. Agent Torres arrived that evening with 2 other agents. Elena showed them the documents. She showed them Margaret's research. She showed them her mother's letter. When she finished, Torres sat in silence for a long moment. This is explosive, Ms. Martinez. If we move forward with this, it's going to destroy your family. Your father will die in prison. The media will tear you apart. I know. You're willing to accept that. Elena thought about her children sleeping peacefully in the next room. She thought about her mother dead at the bottom of a river for trying to escape. My father murdered my mother. He spent 40 years hiding behind money and power and lawyers. He's hurt countless people and never faced any consequences. She looked Torres directly in the eyes. It ends now. Torres nodded slowly. Then we'll need you to cooperate fully. You'll have to testify. You'll have to relive all of this in court in public. Are you ready for that? I've been ready my whole life. I just didn't know it. The wheels of justice moved slowly, but they moved. Elena spent the next 2 months working with the FBI, providing documents, answering questions, identifying assets that needed to be seized. She signed papers. She gave depositions. She prepared herself for what was coming. She also prepared the children. She sat them down one evening and told them as gently as she could that their grandfather had done some very bad things. She told them that sometimes people who seem powerful are actually very scared inside, and they hurt others because they don't know how to be good. Is Grandpa going to go to jail? Noah asked. Yes, sweetheart, he is. Good, Lily said firmly. He was mean to you, Mama. Mean people should go to jail. Elena hugged them both. I love you so much. You know that, right? We know, Mama. We love you too. The arrest happened on a Tuesday morning in Geneva. William Ashworth was taken from his clinic in handcuffs, too weak to walk on his own. The photographs were everywhere within hours. The media feeding frenzy was everything Elena had expected, and worse. Reporters camped outside her building. News vans lined the street. Her phone rang constantly with requests for interviews. She ignored all of it. The trial was scheduled for the following spring, but William never made it that far. His health deteriorated rapidly in custody. The stress of exposure, the collapse of his empire, the betrayal by his own daughter, it broke something inside him that was already failing. He died in a prison hospital 6 weeks after his arrest. Elena received the call at 3 a.m. Ms. Martinez, I'm calling to inform you that William Ashworth passed away at 2:47 this morning. He requested that you be notified. Elena sat in the darkness of her bedroom phone pressed to her ear. Did he say anything? At the end, he asked for you. He kept saying your name, Serafina. Elena closed her eyes. Thank you for telling me. She hung up. She sat there for a long time waiting to feel something. Relief, grief, satisfaction, anger. But all she felt was empty. The monster was dead. The man who had shaped her entire life through fear and control and manipulation was gone, and she had been the one to bring him down. She should feel victorious. Instead, she just felt tired. The next morning, she got up, made breakfast for the twins, and took them to the park. Life continued. It always did. At the funeral, Elena was the only family member present. She stood by the grave in a simple black dress, watching them lower the coffin into the ground. No eulogy, no flowers, no tears. Just a man being returned to the earth alone as he had lived. Silas appeared beside her as the last of the dirt was shoveled onto the grave. Miss Elena. Silas. He asked me to give you this before he died. He handed her a small wooden box, intricately carved with wolves and ravens. The same symbols that had been on the library doors. Elena took it. What's inside? I don't know. He said you would understand. Silas turned and walked away. Elena watched him go. When she got home, she opened the box. Inside was a photograph. Old, faded, creased from years of handling. It showed a young couple on their wedding day. The woman was beautiful, radiant, her dark hair cascading over a white dress. The man was handsome, smiling, his arm wrapped protectively around her waist. Catherine and William Ashworth. 35 years ago. Before the lies. Before the empire. Before everything went wrong. On the back in William's handwriting were 2 words, I'm sorry. Elena stared at those words for a long time. Then she put the photograph back in the box, closed the lid, and placed it on a shelf in her study. She didn't forgive him. She wasn't sure she ever could. But she understood now that even monsters had been human once. Even the worst people had been capable of love before fear and greed and power corrupted them beyond recognition. She wouldn't make the same mistakes he had. She would build something better. She would raise her children to be kind, to be brave, to be everything her father wasn't, and she would make sure that the Ashworth legacy, the dark legacy of secrets and lies and murder, ended with her. A new legacy would begin, one built on truth. 6 months passed like water through fingers. Elena stood at the window of her corner office on the 45th floor of Aurora Tower, watching the city come alive below. The sun was just rising, painting the skyline in shades of gold and pink. Central Park was a dark green rectangle in the distance, peaceful and still. Her reflection stared back at her from the glass. She barely recognized herself anymore. The woman in the reflection wore a tailored black blazer and designer heels. Her hair was styled perfectly. Her posture radiated authority. She looked like someone who had always belonged in boardrooms and corner offices. But Elena remembered the woman who had walked into that courtroom barefoot, clutching 2 sleeping children, wearing a dress from Goodwill. That woman felt like a stranger now, a ghost from another life. Ms. Martinez. Elena turned. David Chen, her executive assistant, stood in the doorway with a tablet in his hand. He was young, brilliant, and absolutely loyal, qualities she had learned to value above all others. The board meeting starts in 30 minutes, and there's a letter that arrived this morning. From the Federal Correctional Facility in Pennsylvania. Elena's stomach tightened. Marcus? Yes, ma'am. She walked to her desk and took the envelope. This was the 4th letter Marcus had sent since his sentencing. She had burned the first 3 without reading them, but something made her hesitate this time. Give me 10 minutes, David, then send in the board. Yes, ma'am. He closed the door behind him. Elena sat down in her leather chair. The envelope was thin, wrinkled, stamped with official prison markings. Her name was written in Marcus's handwriting, shaky, now nothing like the confident scrawl she remembered. She opened it. Elena, I know you won't read this. You didn't read the others, but I have to try. I'm not writing to ask for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I know what I did to you, to the children, to us. I was selfish and cruel and blind. Prison gives you a lot of time to think. Too much time, maybe. I've replayed every moment of our marriage in my head. Every lie I told. Every time I made you feel small. Every night I chose her over you. I was so busy trying to be someone important that I forgot how to be someone good. You were always good, Elena. Even when I couldn't see it. Even when I didn't want to see it. You were the best part of my life and I threw you away like you were nothing. I'm not asking you to visit. I'm not asking you to write back. I just needed you to know that I understand now. I understand what I lost. Tell Noah and Lily that their father is sorry. Tell them I hope they grow up to be nothing like me. I hope you're happy. I really do. Marcus. Elena read the letter twice. Then she folded it carefully and placed it in her desk drawer next to her mother's letter and the photograph from her father's box. A collection of ghosts. A museum of people who had hurt her. But she didn't burn this one. Maybe that was progress. The board meeting lasted 2 hours. Elena sat at the head of the table, flanked by lawyers and executives who had once answered to her father. They answered to her now. The restructuring is complete, Harold Winters reported. He had stayed on after the transition, proving himself more loyal to the money than to any particular Ashworth. All of your father's illegal operations have been shut down. The arms dealing, the political bribery, the offshore accounts. Everything has been liquidated and the funds transferred to legitimate holdings. And the foundation? Elena asked. The Catherine Ashworth Foundation launched last month. Initial funding of $200 million. The board you selected is already reviewing grant applications from domestic violence shelters, women's education programs, and legal aid organizations. Elena nodded. She had named the foundation after her mother. It seemed fitting using the money built on Catherine's murder to help other women escape dangerous situations. What about the criminal cases? Agent Torres, who had been invited to observe the meeting, spoke up. All of your father's known associates have been indicted. 17 convictions so far, with more expected. The network is effectively dismantled. And Viktor Kozlov? Torres's face darkened. He's beyond our reach. Russia won't extradite. But we've frozen all of his assets in the United States and Europe. He's not happy about that. Elena felt a chill run down her spine. She had known that exposing her father would make enemies. She just hadn't realized how many. Is my family safe? We have agents monitoring the situation. So far, no credible threats. But I would recommend maintaining your current security protocols. I intend to. The meeting ended. The executives filed out, already murmuring about next quarter's projections. Elena stayed behind, staring at the empty chairs. She had done it. She had dismantled her father's empire and rebuilt it into something clean, something she could be proud of. But the weight hadn't lifted. The emptiness hadn't filled. She was still the girl who had grown up without a mother, the woman whose husband had betrayed her, the daughter who had sent her father to die alone. Success hadn't healed those wounds. Nothing could. But maybe that was okay. Maybe the wounds were what made her strong. Elena left the office at 4 p.m. early for her. She had somewhere to be. The drive to Queens took 45 minutes. Elena watched the city change outside her window. The gleaming towers gave way to brick apartment buildings. The designer boutiques became bodegas and laundromats. The wealth evaporated, replaced by something rawer and more real. She told the driver to stop in front of a small diner on a corner she knew well. Murphy's. The same diner where she had worked as a waitress for 3 years. The same diner where she had met Marcus. She hadn't been back since the divorce. But today felt right. Elena walked inside. The smell hit her immediately. Grease and coffee, and something sweet baking in the back. It was exactly as she remembered. The lunch crowd had cleared out, leaving only a few regulars nursing cups of coffee. A woman in her 60s stood behind the counter wiping down the surface with a rag. "Can I help you, hun?" Elena smiled. "Hi, Murphy." Murphy squinted at her. Then her eyes went wide. Little Elena Martinez." "It's been a while." Murphy came around the counter and pulled Elena into a crushing hug. She smelled like flour and dish soap, the smell of Elena's old life. "My God, look at you. I saw you on the news, you know. Couldn't believe it. My little waitress running a billion-dollar company. I told everyone who would listen. I said that girl worked my lunch shift for 3 years. Elena laughed. It felt good to laugh. "I missed you, Murphy." "I missed you too, sweetheart. Sit down, sit down. Let me get you some coffee, on the house." They sat in a booth by the window. Murphy brought coffee and a slice of apple pie that Elena hadn't asked for, but was grateful to receive. "So," Murphy said, settling into the seat across from her. "Tell me everything. The news only had the headlines. I want the real story." Elena told her. Not everything, some secrets were too heavy to share. But enough. The marriage, the betrayal, the courtroom, the revelation. Murphy listened without interrupting, her weathered face shifting between shock and pride and sorrow. "That man," Murphy said when Elena finished. "That Marcus. I never liked him. Remember I told you the first time he came in here, I said that one's got eyes like a snake. You can't trust a man with snake eyes." "You were right. I'm always right. 30 years behind this counter, you learn to read people." Murphy reached across the table and took Elena's hand. "But you did good, sweetheart. You got out. You made something of yourself. Your mama would be proud." Elena felt tears prick her eyes. "I hope so. I know so. I met your mama once, you know, before she died. She came in here looking for you back when you first started working. Beautiful woman, kind eyes. She sat right where you're sitting now and ordered a coffee." Elena's heart clenched. "I didn't know that." "She asked me to watch out for you. Said you were precious. Said you had a light inside you that needed protecting." Murphy squeezed her hand. "I tried, sweetheart, best I could." Elena was crying now. She didn't try to stop it. "Thank you, Murphy, for everything. You don't have to thank me. Just promise me you'll be happy. That's all any of us want for you." Elena wiped her eyes. "I'm trying." "That's all anyone can do." They talked for another hour. Murphy told her about the diner, the new chef, the health inspector who had come by last month, the regular customers who asked about Elena whenever they saw her on the news. It was ordinary conversation. Simple. Human. Elena had forgotten how much she missed ordinary. When she finally left, the sun was setting. She stood on the sidewalk outside the diner, breathing in the city air. It smelled like exhaust and hot dogs and rain on concrete. It smelled like home. Her phone buzzed. A text from Maria. "The children are asking for you. Noah wants to show you a drawing. Lily says she won't eat dinner until you're home." Elena smiled and typed back, "On my way." She got into the car and headed home. The penthouse was warm and bright when she arrived. Music was playing, something from a Disney movie the twins had been obsessed with lately. The smell of Maria's cooking drifted from the kitchen. "Mama!" Noah came running before Elena could even close the door. He slammed into her legs and wrapped his arms around her, nearly knocking her off balance. "I made you something. I made you something. You have to see it. I want to see it. Show me." He grabbed her hand and dragged her into the living room, where Lily was sitting on the couch with her arms crossed. "You're late," Lily said. Her tone was accusatory, but her eyes were relieved. "I'm sorry, sweetheart. I had to visit an old friend." "You have friends?" Elena laughed. "I used to. I'm trying to make more." Noah thrust a piece of paper into her hands. "Look. Look." Elena looked. It was a drawing done in crayon. A tall figure with brown hair stood in the center, holding hands with two smaller figures. Behind them was a big building with lots of windows. The sun was shining. Everyone was smiling. That's you, Noah explained, pointing at the tall figure. And that's me and Lily. And that's our house. And that's the sun because you said we're going to be happy now. Elena felt her heart crack open in the best possible way. It's beautiful, sweetheart. It's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. She knelt down and pulled both children into her arms. They squirmed and complained they were getting too old for this, they insisted, but they held on just as tight. I love you, Elena whispered. I love you both so much. We know, Mama, Lily said. You tell us every day. And I'll tell you tomorrow, and the day after that, and the day after that. Forever. Forever. They had dinner together. Maria had made pasta with meatballs, the twins' favorite. They sat around the kitchen table like a real family, passing bread and telling stories about their day. Noah had learned to write the number 7 at school. Lily had made a friend named Sophie who had a hamster. Small things. Ordinary things. Precious things. After dinner, Elena tucked them into bed. She read them a story, 3 stories actually, because Noah kept asking for just one more. She kissed their foreheads and turned off the lights and stood in the doorway watching them fall asleep. These were the moments that mattered, not the board meetings or the business deals or the billion-dollar empire. These quiet moments, these ordinary miracles. This was what she had fought for. This was what she had nearly lost. She would never take it for granted again. Later that night, Elena sat in her study with a glass of wine going through the day's correspondence. Most of it was routine business proposals, charity requests, interview invitations. But one envelope caught her attention. It was small and elegant with no return address. Her name was written in calligraphy. She opened it. Inside was a single card with a message written in blue ink. Congratulations on everything you've accomplished. Your mother would be so proud. I know because I was proud of her too. I've watched you from afar for many years, hoping this day would come. If you ever want to know more about who you really are, I would be honored to meet you. My name is Isabella Porter. James was my brother. You are my niece, and you are not alone. With love, your family. Elena stared at the card. James Porter. Her biological father. The artist who had died before she was born. She had a family. A real family. Someone connected to her by blood, not by manipulation or fear. She didn't know what to do with that information. It was too big, too overwhelming to process. But for the first time in her life, she felt something she had never felt before. Hope. Not hope that things would be easy. They wouldn't be. She had enemies who wanted her dead. A company that demanded her constant attention. Children who needed her to be strong even when she felt weak. But hope that she could handle it. Hope that she wasn't alone. Hope that the future held more than just survival. She picked up her phone and composed a message to the number that had been written on the back of the card. Isabella, I would like to meet. Tell me when and where. She pressed send. Then she finished her wine, turned off the lights, and went to bed. The next morning, Elena woke early. The sun was just coming up, casting long shadows across the bedroom floor. She got dressed, made coffee, and walked to the window. The city stretched out before her, endless and alive. 1 year ago, she had been a waitress in Queens, wondering how she would pay the rent. She had been married to a man who despised her, trapped in a life that felt like a prison. Now she was free. She had lost so much along the way. Her mother, her marriage, her father, her innocence. But she had gained so much more. Her children, her power, her truth. Herself. The old Elena, the scared girl who had run from her family, the desperate wife who had accepted cruelty as love, the broken woman who had believed she deserved nothing that Elena was gone. In her place stood someone new, someone stronger, someone who had walked through fire and emerged not unscathed, but unbroken. The door opened behind her. Small footsteps padded across the floor. Mama! Lily's sleepy voice called out. Are you okay? Elena turned and smiled at her daughter. I'm okay, sweetheart. I'm more than okay. Lily walked over and leaned against her mother's legs. Noah's still sleeping. He snores like a bear. Elena laughed. He does, doesn't he? Mama. Yes, baby. Are we going to be happy now for real? Elena looked down at her daughter's upturned face, those dark eyes so full of trust and hope, those small hands reaching for comfort. She thought about everything she had been through, every betrayal, every heartbreak, every moment of despair. And she thought about everything that lay ahead, the challenges, the dangers, the unknowns. But she also thought about this moment, this perfect, ordinary moment, a mother and daughter watching the sunrise together. Yes, sweetheart, Elena said. We're going to be happy, I promise. Lily smiled. Good, because I don't want to be sad anymore. Neither do I, baby, neither do I. They stood there together watching the city wake up, a new day, a new beginning. Behind them, the penthouse was stirring. Maria was making breakfast. Noah was starting to wake, calling for his mother. The world was demanding her attention. But for this one moment, Elena let herself be still. Let herself breathe. Let herself believe that everything was going to be okay. She had climbed out of the darkness. She had built something from nothing. She had protected her children and honored her mother and defeated the man who had tried to destroy her. She was no longer a victim, no longer a pawn. She was a queen. And this was her kingdom. The woman who had walked into that courtroom barefoot was gone. In her place stood Elena Martinez, mother, CEO, survivor. And she was just getting started.